Before the dawn of COVID-19 pandemic, conflict and crisis situations were already impacting adversely on women and the girl child in Nigeria. Now, women and young girls are soft targets for insurgents and other criminal elements in parts of the country, particularly in the north. They're both kidnapped and killed or raped, and if fortune smiles on them, forced into unwanted early marriages. Now, the story is told of a mother whose children were murdered one by one, allegedly for repeatedly refusing to have sexual intimacy with insurgents. But this is one out of the endemic stories of gender-based violence against women and young girls here in our country. There are now concerns that apart from the direct impact on the health and psychological well-being of women and girls, COVID-19 pandemic is instigating an upsurge in rape and other domestic violence on women and girls. Now, a UN Women and UNFPA reports estimate global rise in gender-based violence and predict about 15 million cases worldwide, and that's within every 3 months that preventive protocols of the COVID-19 is sustained. A sexual assault center here in Nigeria claims that it has provided services to more than 15 clients within a 4-day period. Most of them, unfortunately, are cases of defilement. Now, we have quite a number of stories. I mean, we all know, act by the spike in child rape and violence against women across the country in the past few months of COVID-19 lockdown. Women and gender-sensitive men, too, have raised the bar of advocacy to much more higher level. Now, in the forefront is Nigeria's First Lady, Aisha Muhammad Buhari. Through her non-governmental organization, Future Assured, Aisha Buhari is leading an army of First Ladies from the 36 states of the Federation to wage an intensive advocacy warfare against rapists and GBV, that's gender-based violence offenders. Now, to further amplify their voices, the 36 First Ladies have also mobilized on the platform of First Ladies Against Gender-Based Violence, FLA-GBV. Also, at the federal level, the Office of the Minister of Women Affairs is also adding its voice to this war. Can this war be won? What are the strategies? On Late Edition this week, we engage all the ladies at war against rape and gender-based violence. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul-Razak. Thank you for joining me. Her Excellency Dame Pauline Talon is a seasoned administrator, a long-standing politician and philanthropist. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology from the University of Jos and studied strategy in public sector negotiations at Harvard University and also attended John F. N. Kennedy School of Government. She has served in many political positions. She was a member of the Plateau State Executive Council between 1994 and 1996, having served as Commissioner Social Development, Youth, Sports and Culture, as well as Commissioner in the Ministry of Health. Mrs. Thailand served as Chairman, Governing Board of Raw Materials, Research and Development Commission in 2005. She served as Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, and that's between 1999 and 2003, before returning to Plateau State, her home state, to serve as Deputy Governor. And by the way, she was the first female from northern Nigeria to occupy that position between 2007 and 2011. In 2015, Mrs. Thailand became the APC National Advisor of the National Campaign Women Council under the chairperson of Wife of the President, Aisha Buhari, and a member Board of Trustees of the APC. She is Chairman, Governing Board of the National Council for the Control of AIDS, NACA, and she has also attended many health-related seminars and conferences. She is an astute politician, administrator, and currently serves as the Minister of Women Affairs. Now, my second guest, Her Excellency Erelu Bisi Fayemi, is the First Lady of Ekiti State and wife of the Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, Kayode Fayemi. She is a passionate gender activist, gender and development specialist, social entrepreneur, policy advocate, and a great writer. She has a bachelor's degree and master's degree in history from University of Ife, Nigeria, of course, now known as Obafemi Awolowo University. She holds a master's degree in gender and society from Middlesex University in the UK and an honorary doctorate degree in sociology from the Tai Solarin University of Education here in Nigeria. Mrs. Fayemi served as the director of an international development organization for African women based in London, with an Africa regional office based in Kampala, Uganda, and that's between 1991 and 2001. Now, as director of that organization, she established the African Women's Leadership Institute, which is a training and networking forum for young African women. Erelu Bisi Adeleye Fayemi co-founded the African Women's Development Fund, which is, of course, the first Africa-wide grant-making foundation for women based in Ghana, and she served as the first executive director from 2001 to 2010. Now, until recently, she was a UN Women Nigeria Senior Advisor and is currently a visiting Senior Research Fellow at the Africa Leadership Center, King's College, London. Erelu Fayemi has been actively involved in a range of policy advocacy, grassroots empowerment, and social inclusion programs in her state, that's Ekiti, and has led the campaign to enact a gender-based violence prohibition law. She also was instrumental in the Equal Opportunities Bill and an HIV anti-stigma bill in 2014. She is currently chair, Gender-Based Violence Management Committee for the implementation of the GBV law in Ekiti State and chair of the Ekiti State AIDS Control Agency, SACA. She joins me via Zoom from Ekiti State. Let me first welcome Her Excellency Erelu Bisi Adeleye Fayemi. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us from Ekiti.
Thank you, Claire, for inviting me. Hello, Honorable Minister. Well done.
My dear sister. Thank you, my great champion. She's been in the battlefield.
All right, thank you. Let me also welcome the Honorable Minister. She's been here for a while. Honorable Minister, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Claire.
All right, distinguished ladies, first of all, for ease of our conversation, let's put the subject of our conversation into a box. And I'd like to start with the Honorable Minister. Is gender-based violence, for short GBV, and rape restrictive to the female sex? Or in what sense are women addressing these issues?
Thank you very much. Rape and gender-based violence is not just restricted to the female child, but it's more on the girl child. And it has become a pandemic because for the past few months, and to be precise, for the past 2 weeks, I've never been so traumatized in my life than now, because on daily basis, hourly basis, we receive horrific news of child abuse, of rape, and the child has been so abused that I want everybody to know and realize that rape and child abuse is not a woman issue. It's not just a problem that concerns the woman, but it's a societal problem.
How are women addressing it? Are you addressing it as a generic issue, or are you particular about how it affects women and the girl child?
We are addressing it both sides, because it affects the girl child more, but even the boys. If you recall 3 years back, the First Lady set up a committee, which I was a member, on the issue in Kano. You remember the school in Kano where students were so abused at night in their dormitories. So this thing has become so rampant and is growing, and it has become so, it has hyped so much with the pandemic of COVID-19. And to me, it's even worse now, because the pandemic of rape, if we are not careful, it's clear that it's even worse than the pandemic of COVID-19.
Okay,
because this is with us, and we are destroying the future of a child completely. Because a child that is abused and raped, psychologically, that child can never be the same.
All right. Erelubisi Fayeme, give us a sense of the burden. Some people would say that, yes, gender-based violence and rape has been endemic in this country. So what's new?
Well, I believe that what is happening right now is the price that we all pay for our collective inaction. Women's rights organizations and many human rights activists have been raising these issues for years, drawing attention to the rise in violence against women and girls, and the ways in which our cultural norms and context create an environment whereby women grow up believing that they're second-class citizens, and those who are in control of our political, economic, social, religious, and cultural systems use those systems to exclude women, to marginalize them, to minimize their voices, and give men, unfortunately, a sense of entitlement to women's bodies. We've always had rape and gender-based violence in our communities, but there's always been a deep culture of silence around it. So what we are seeing and hearing now is what it sounds like when a culture of violence is broken. Because people now know that they can speak up, they can talk about it, and they'll be heard, and in some instances, they might get justice. More and more people are coming forward. We are now in a time where, due to the COVID-19 crisis and with the lockdowns, we see an increase in the levels of violence, because where women and young girls would have had a respite from their abusers or predators, the lockdowns have now forced people to live together, to be on the same spot, and it has exacerbated women's vulnerability. So that's why it seems as if we are seeing more cases now. But the point I'm making is rape and gender-based violence has always been with us.
Let me just pause it for a while and come back to the Honorable Minister here in the studio, because you raised two issues: the breaking in the silence, which has been the culture, and of course, some connection with the lockdown. Are there indicators that lockdown, COVID-19 lockdown has actually exacerbated, the issue of rape and violence against women?
Sure, it has, because as we are all aware, the lockdown has created a situation where the victims, that's the women or the children, are being locked down with their abusers. You can imagine you are being imprisoned with your abusers. So there's no way to go out. And we need to collectively intensify advocacy. There should be more advocacy, more awareness by everybody. It's a societal problem. It's not just civil society organizations. It's not just Ministry of Women Affairs or government.
You were sharing a particular experience, figures from a particular state earlier on.
Yes. Just 2 days ago, the day before yesterday, in the evening, I just called one of our NGOs, Priscilla to be precise. She's in Edo. She's one of our great gender champions that has been working round the clock on, her NGO is a BHI. And I called her in the evening just to check on what is happening, because the cases are so many in Edo in particular, and all the states around. And she screamed. She said, "Honorable Minister, I'm right now in the police station. There are 2 bad cases, just 2 on that same day. And that within the lockdown, a particular local government, that local government, has 29 cases."
That's within this lockdown?
Just within this lockdown, one local government. And if you can imagine, if one local government has about 29 cases within 3 months, it's happening all over the local governments, all over the country. Let's say averagely, even if it is half, times 774 local governments in the country. Is that not horrific? And there is no state that is left out. Because I called an emergency meeting 2 weeks ago with the State Commissioners of Women Affairs, and the reports I received was scary. Hundreds of cases are left there, are not being attended to in our courts. So many cases are swept under the carpet. But we can no longer take it.
I just would like us, to really play around and try to understand the triggers. The triggers, because Erelu mentioned some religious and cultural, triggers. Mm-hmm. And I just would like her to expatiate on that.
Okay.
What aspect of our religion or cultural practice, might be triggers, of violence against women or rape, of the girl child?
Thank you, but I thought you'd be more concerned about what we can do to address the situation on our hands. We all know the reason why these things happen. They happen because some men believe that they have an entitlement to women's bodies. Some men believe that women are objects to be used and disposed of. And many of our cultural norms and practices make this possible. We are all aware of this. What we need to be doing now is thinking about how we can change this culture and how we can change these behaviors. And from my experience and what it is a lot of people have been saying from different sectors is we need to work on changing mindsets. We need to work on behavioral change. We need to look at our education system. What is it saying about the roles of men and about the roles of women, and what are children learning right from when they are in school? We need to look at the ways in which our society is organized. Are we organizing ourselves in ways in which suppose that men are the ones who go out and be leaders, and women are the ones who stay at home, and they are the ones who do all the cooking and the cleaning, and they don't have a voice in what goes on in the community? When we organize ourselves in those ways, the message we are sending out is that women are inferior, women are not as important. So when it comes to the issue of women having control over their bodies, being able to consent to marriage, being able to consent to a sexual relationship. That power and agency is taken away from women and girls, and it makes each and every one of us vulnerable. So those, I believe, are the fundamental issues we need to address.
There are talks, on the social media about what the triggers are. Indeed, I'm sure that the social media is inundated with the issues of, again, the way we dress, the way young girls, especially undergraduates, and they related with the number of young undergraduates who have been raped to death or, who have been battered and all that. So I just, again, before I come back to you, Honorable Minister, is dressing an issue? Has it always been an issue?
I don't agree that dressing is an issue, because so many women in the north are raped in their hijab. So many. I've known so many cases of women that were raped in their hijab. Okay, what about the rape of a 3-month-old child, or 6-month-old child, or 1 year or 2 year, the minors? I mean, how do you talk about that when you see people, an 80-year-old man or a 70-year-old man raping a child of 5 years, 2 years, 3 years? I mean, these are minors, these are innocent children. Or the recent one we've all had, the 3 months, a father raping his baby from 3 months until 9 months before it was discovered. For 6 months, raping a baby. Is that normal? He removes the diapers and messed the child up. So I don't think dressing is an issue. If you're a decent man and you see a lady that doesn't dress well, take off your eyes. Must you look at her?
Moral.
What about all the ones that are so glaring and so rampant are those that are raped in their hijab? And if a woman is in her hijab, there is nothing that is sin.
Mothers, there are cases where mothers of children, yes, or minors who are, yes, raped have been blamed by, the suspects. In fact, a particular case I was sharing with you, I'm sure Irelu is listening, was caught. And the question the suspect asked was, where was the mother? If the mother was a good woman, would he have committed a crime? Yeah. So what has been the role of mothers? Irelu mentioned orientation, yeah, reorientation and all that. Yeah. Mothers in all of this.
Yes. Mothers or parents generally have a key role to play, because mothers must know where their daughters are at every point. Mothers should be sure of who takes care of their child when you are at work. Some nannies, some cooks, some house helps abuse our children when we're at work. Mothers must be very, very careful and proactive. You have to arrange, maybe fix cameras to monitor what is happening in your house while you are not around. And if that is done, make sure that at no point that your child is left with only one person in the house. You must find a mechanism where you check and closely monitor and check who are those you are working with and those taking care of your children, even our drivers. Some drivers abuse children when taking them to school. You don't trust drivers, you shouldn't trust everybody around you. So the drivers should not be left with the innocent child alone going to school. The same thing after school, they take them and divert somewhere. All this must be closely monitored.
Irelu, you talk about reorientation, reorientating the minds of Nigerians, especially the male gender. I know that many women groups and associations have over the years embarked on intensive, robust advocacy seminars, including, of course, the first ladies. What kind of, or how do we begin? How do we begin this reorientation that you're talking about? At what stage, where, and how?
Thank you. I believe we have to have actions at different levels. We have to adopt what I call a pressure cooker approach. There has to be pressure from above and pressure from below. The pressure from above comes in the form of policies and laws to ensure that these issues are adequately criminalized. Just like murder, if people know that they are going to pay the price for committing acts like rape and other forms of sexual violence, the same way in which murderers know they're going to face consequences, then they'll hopefully think twice. So that is where the issue of legislation comes in. We have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act that was passed in 2015, and state governments are supposed to domesticate the VAP Act. So far, only 13 states in Nigeria have domesticated the VAP Act. Hopefully, Bauchi will do so soon. It's just past the second reading. So we'll have 14 states who have passed the VAP Act plus the SCT. We need to do more. And it's a great thing that the governors have now agreed to go back to their states and ensure, if they have not done so, that they domesticate the VAP Act. We have the child rights law. Many states in certain parts of Nigeria have still not domesticated the child rights law. That's absolutely important as well. Last year, November, the Federal Ministry of Women's Affairs and in collaboration with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs launched the Sex Offenders Register. Again, state governments are supposed to domesticate this and come up with their own versions. So far, we only have Lagos State and Ekiti State who have a sex offenders register. We need all these policies so that we can have tools and instruments to hold people accountable.
BC Fayemi, I'd like to thank you. Honorable Minister, let's just pause for a while, take a short break, take a breather, have a cup of water. When we come back, we'll now I want to look at the role of the First Ladies, because I know you're working very, very hard behind, at the background, just as much as the Honorable Minister also has made some presentations at the federal level. When we come back, we'll look at these issues and see how we can, of course, what we are doing new to eradicate rape and gender-based violence against women and the girl child. You're watching Late Edition this week, and we're looking at women. We're engaging ladies at war against rape and other domestic violence against women and the girl child. We'll be right back.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Late Edition this week, and we're talking rape and gender-based violence against women and the girl child. And I have with me Iridu BC Fayemi, Her Excellency, the First Lady of Ekiti State, joining us via Zoom from Ekiti. And I also have here in the studio the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Paul and Thailand. Distinguished ladies, thank you for joining me. Let me begin with the Honourable Minister.
Thank you.
The First Lady of Ekiti has mentioned a number of laws and legislations.
Yes.
I don't think we're in deficit of those laws. But the question will be, since you said we must start from above and then below, do these laws provide adequate protection for women in themselves?
Thank you very much. The VAP law has provided adequate protection for women and girls. Our only problem is enforcement. If all the states will domesticate the VAP acts and ensure prompt enforcement, I think it will stem the tide. But so far, as she rightly said, out of the 36 states and FCT, only Lagos and Ekiti has domesticated the VAP Act. So far, their last governor's meeting, where I was invited to address them, I was highly impressed with the commitment under the able leadership of Governor John Fayemi, the governor of Ekiti State, His Excellency, who is fully committed, and all the governors. From what I saw that day, I was a little bit, very much encouraged, because they all were committed, and they shared in our anger, because I could see the father in them, and they were committed to ensure that they will go back, declare a state of emergency, which they have done, to ensure that these laws are domesticated in their states and will ensure the enforcement of the laws where the need arises.
If enforcement is an issue,
yeah,
it means the decision makers themselves are complacent in enforcing it. So why are they not listening?
Well, but within the past few days, you could see the commitment at the highest level. I'm highly impressed.
The VPP has been passed since 2015.
Yes. There has been, the atmosphere has not been quite encouraging and encouraging and good enough for us to say that yes, action is being taken. But with the lockdown of COVID-19, it has heightened the cases. And now, with more awareness, because there is so much anger in everybody, the civil societies are working, advocating for more stringent measures. Last year, I remember the 16 days activism against rape and gender-based violence. We all moved to the street. I led over 1 million women walk to the Chief Judge and the Inspector General of Police. From the 15th to the 16th, it was full of activities. That heightened awareness, and now people are beginning to speak out. So Ministry of Health is involved, Ministry of Education, my ministry, civil society organizations, the judiciary, all of us, all hands will be on deck.
Is this not going to be another jamboree,
No,
another coming together? What makes you so sure of that, Honourable Minister?
I am sure, because both at the federal and the state level, if the president and the governors are all committed and they are ready to lead this war, I believe. Okay. And with some of us on that committee, we will not allow the usual to continue. Okay. The civil society organizations, my ministry, we are all angry. And with the support of the First Ladies, the wife of the president, and all wives of governors, apart from that again, we have another committee headed by Mrs. Fayemi Irelu, with the wife of the governor of Kwara State as the secretary. This is a committee of First Ladies that are concerned most on gender-based violence. In
fact, that's why I'm taking my next question to Her Excellency, the Ekiti, First Lady of Ekiti. Mrs. Fayemi, you have a robust experience as a gender advocate yourself and chair of the First Ladies Against Gender-Based Violence on this matter. You've had courts to engage, the governors on this. And I'm wondering, what are their concerns with regards to implementing some of the laws or domesticating some of the laws that you have enumerated or you enumerated earlier on?
So what we have done as Nigerian governors' wives against gender-based violence is that we have come up with an action plan. That action plan is going to be taken back to our respective states. We are all at different places with regards to our response to gender-based violence. But a starting point is going to be the fact that our husbands have declared a state of emergency, just as we demanded for action against gender-based violence. So we are going to be holding our husbands accountable for that. We are going to, for example, be looking into the laws that are supposed to create an enabling environment for GBV responses to happen. So where there are no laws, where the VAP Act, for example, has not been domesticated, or where there is no child rights law, we are going to be addressing that. And our governors have made a commitment that that's one of the things they are going to prioritize, ensuring that they domesticate those legislations. Now, for the 13 states who already have gender-based violence laws, who have domesticated the VAP Act, extremely grateful to them. What we need now is to ensure that there is a comprehensive plan to implement those laws, and the implementation is backed with the required political will and resources. So that's the first item on our agenda, ensuring that these legislations are either put in place or implemented. Second, we are particularly concerned about the issue of treatment, care, and support for survivors of gender-based violence. And that means that we need to look at our state and ensure that all of us have a way of providing immediate care and support for GBV victims of survivors through having a sexual assault referral center, what is known as a SARC. Some states have this SARC, some don't. So the goal is to ensure that over the next couple of months, every single state in the country will have the equivalent of a sexual assault referral center. Also, we all have to have a shelter where women in distress can be kept for some time to support them and their children. Again, some states have shelters, many don't, and in some states, it's only the women's organizations who are struggling with the meager resources they have to provide support for survivors. So this issue of treatment care and support for GBV survivors is extremely important to us as governors' wives.
Erelu, thank you. Honorable Minister, the First Lady has said that they have resolved to hold their husbands or state executives accountable with regards to implementing some of the laws and legislations. Now we have the Child Rights Act. I mean, this is a long-standing law. We have CEDAW. This is a long-standing international instrument. Over the years, women groups, civil societies have worked hard to ensure that this is domesticated evenly at the federal level. How do we get the executives to domesticate the Child Rights Act, for instance, which has been controversial?
Thank you very much. It is a serious matter of concern. The Child Rights Act is a major instrument that we must have all the 36 states, including FCT, properly domesticated. So far, we have only 26 states that have domesticated. We still have 10 states that have not domesticated the Child Rights Act, and that is another major problem.
Is it working even where the states where, if it was working,
yes,
if it was enforced,
yes,
would we have the kind of spike that we're having in these issues?
But now it has come to public glare, and there's more awareness now, and we will intensify more of this advocacy, because part of what was approved at the Federal Executive Council last Wednesday was an interministerial national launch of advocacy by the Ministry of Information and Culture and the Ministry of Women Affairs. In fact, your minister proposed, he moved that motion, and it was supported by all of us. So it was approved. A national advocacy campaign against rape and gender-based violence will be mounted, where all stakeholders will be properly educated. We will move to the grassroots and ensure the community own it. They must own it, take ownership, and then be part of this war. If they own it, then we can have hope that the child will be protected, and whoever is caught in the act will be properly dealt with.
What, because I think it was Iredu that mentioned it,
Yeah.
that there's going to be a declaration of emergency.
The governors have already done that.
Fine. So what does that mean?
That is to show the commitment and seriousness on this matter. And they have to live by their words. I believe them. And I believe, we are praying along, that God will touch their hearts to keep to their words and ensure the implementation of what they've agreed to do on the burning issue. It has become so horrific that on daily basis, hourly basis, there is no day that passes that a child is not raped somewhere at any timing point. And where one case is reported, be sure there are 10 that have not been reported. So it's a pandemic that every member of the society, all well-meaning Nigerians, must join hands with us in this war.
I was going to quote what you said,
Yes.
With regards to the launch of the National Sex Offenders Register.
Yeah.
National Offenders Register would be fully implemented, and any sex offender found wanting will face the wrath of the law.
Yes.
So what is the state of that register now?
That's the problem. With this declaration of the state of emergency by the governors, they are committed to go back now and ensure they implement. It was launched at the national level. We have it at NAPTIC office, and the DG NAPTIC is doing a very good job. I'm very impressed with what she's doing. We also have one in the National Development, Women Development Center, and it is also working. So these two are working.
When you say working, what do you mean? Because if it's working, we don't know. Let us know, how is it working?
Whoever is caught now, NAPTIP have arrested so many cases. They've been jailed. They are shamed. Their names are put on the sex offenders registers with their pictures. And that is what they hate most. If they are exposed and their names and pictures are put on the sex offenders register, they are the ones now that will be stigmatized, not the victim. So if we get more support from our leaders, I've seen the political will this week. It has happened. We are now waiting to see the enforcement back at the states.
Okay. Your Excellency, Iredu Fayemi, Ekiti State has been in the forefront with regards to implementation of the National Sex Offenders Register. How is implementation in your state, and has it proved to be a deterrent to offenders?
Okay, first of all, for record purposes, Ekiti State was the first state in Nigeria to put in place a sex offenders register in 2013, followed by Lagos State in 2014. It was really great, therefore, to see the federal government make it a national project in November 2019. Hoping that all the states of the Federation would now domesticate it. It's important to have that kind of register so that we can keep track of sex offenders in our midst, so that someone does not defile or rape a woman in Kwara State, serve a handful of years in prison, and go and resurface in Benue State as a teacher, only to do the same thing over again. So we have to have this register so that states and the federal government can share information track these criminals and make sure that they don't continue to be a menace to citizens. Also in Ekiti State, to back up the sex offenders register, we have a name and shame policy, which means if you have been convicted of a sex offense, your photograph and information about what you did and how you did it and where you did it will be posted in your community so that everyone in your community will know what you have done. So if you end up coming back from prison maybe 10, 20 years from now, it will still be on record. Or God forbid, if you mind to get off on the technicality, at least it's there on record in your community that you are a rapist, that you are an assaulter, and you are to be avoided. We need to keep emphasizing this so that gradually we can get back to being a society that has zero tolerance for the abuse of women and children and stop acting as if it's supposed to be a norm that we have to get used to. We cannot get used to a way of life that makes our women and children vulnerable at home and on the street.
All right, thank you. Let me also ask you about the declaration of emergency on GBV and rape. What extraordinary measures, I don't know, are state executives willing to adopt extraordinary measures, to address the concerns that, your group or your body has raised with regards to rape and GBV? Are there extraordinary measures that the governors are willing to take?
For the state of emergency to work, I believe it is not enough for the governor of each state to go back and say, this is what I'm going to do around gender-based violence. I believe all our public institutions and even private institutions need to declare their own equivalent of a state of emergency. The National Assembly needs to do so. We need to hear from the Inspector General of Police how is the IGP going to ensure, for example, that we have a people-friendly, a women-friendly police force, trained, sensitized, compassionate, and proactive in different parts of Nigeria to help us address GBV issues. One of the main reasons why survivors don't go to report assault cases is the way they get treated by police. Even in the case of Uwa, we heard that one of the police people said, "Are you the first family whose child will be raped?" We are all familiar with the activities of some police officers. They don't speak on behalf of the entire police force, but I would like to see the Inspector General of Police come up with a plan of action to say, as far as the police are concerned, this is what a state of emergency means when they want to tackle gender-based violence.
From the perspective of the First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, and also from the federal, executive council, how do we ensure that all of this new wave, achieves results?
Thank you very much. The surest way to ensure that this new wave will achieve results, first, is the political will. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, for the first time, we've seen the commitment of Mr. President. I want to also thank all members of the Federal Executive Council for their unanimous support when this matter was brought before Council last Wednesday.
Okay, so there's political will.
There's political will. Okay. And on the part of the governors, we've seen political will. And after the approval of the memo, Mr. President immediately directed the Attorney General to put in place this committee. And in addition to that, we are planning to launch the National Advocacy Campaign with the Minister of Information and Culture, which will go down to the grassroots. And we will hold the community, we will hold every state governor and all stakeholders accountable.
So going forward, there's political will both at the federal level and at the sub-national level, which we've never had.
Yes.
So this will make a change.
Definitely.
You're finding out.
But it's not just government that can do it. I've told you, it's a societal problem. And all hands must be on deck. The civil society have been working so hard over the years. And I want to thank all our civil society organizations for their commitment, for their resilience to stand and fight this war in line with the Ministry of Women Affairs. Without their support, I wouldn't be strong enough.
Minister, we've run out of time.
So
I'll come back to appreciate you. Let me quickly allow Erelu to say her final words. Erelu, what are you envisaging to be the outcome of this new wave of advocacy?
I expect that a national consensus would have been generated around gender-based violence. I would like to see that whoever we are in Nigeria, whether we are government officials in civil society, men, women, students, workers, and so on, that we all agree that gender-based violence should have no room in our midst. That we cannot continue in a situation whereby no woman or girl feels safe. If we have this national consensus, it will enable us unlock all the issues that we need, all the strategies rather, that we need to work on at community level, at state level, and at national level.
All right, Erelu BC Adeleye Fayemi, the First Lady of Ekiti State, thank you. I really feel your passion. It's written all over you. It's a sad situation, but I am also optimistic that we will get the national consensus that we so much advocate. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you for inviting me.
And the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, I'd like to also appreciate your passion, your commitment, and your dedication to not just the issue of violence against women, but also other issues, that have to do with women. You've always been at the forefront. Thank you for finding time to join me on the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
All right, that's it on this week's Late Edition. I want to thank you. I do hope you found the program interesting and worth your while. From me and the rest of my production team, it's bye-bye.